The sun is setting over the high steps. You stand atop a hill as rolling as limestone, a solitary figure against the vast, purplish twilight sky. To the west, the sun has long since sunk below the jagged horizon, leaving behind a faint reddish patch of light blending with the approaching gray. You are miles from the nearest village, miles from the nearest road. Here, in the summer pastures, the world seems older, wilder, and infinitely larger. There are no straight lines here. The earth ripples and twists like a frozen sea of green and brown, dotted with the white marks of exposed rocks. The wind is your constant companion. Not a harsh wind tonight, but a constant, relentless current pushing against your back. It carries the moisture of the Atlantic Ocean, a damp, heavy coolness that clings to your skin and remains in droplets on your eyelashes. It smells of wet peat, crushed heather, and approaching rain. You pull your thick woolen cloak tighter around your shoulders. The cloak is made of thick, felted wool, saturated with the sheep's natural fats. It's heavy, like a burden pressing down on you, but it's the only thing protecting you from the freezing cold. You lean on your staff, made of long, polished hazelnut wood with a ram's horn hook. The grip is warm, smooth from years of contact. Below you, in the shallow valley, is your charge. 500 sheep. In the dim light, they do not look like individual animals. They look like a slow-moving river of gray and white, flowing over the green turf. They are a single organism, shifting and turning with a hive mind. You listen to the sound of the flock. It is a continuous, low-level rumble. It is the sound of 2,000 hooves shuffling through the thick grass. It is the sound of 500 mouths tearing at the vegetation. You can hear the rhythmic ripping noise as they graze. They grasp the grass with their teeth and jerk their heads, tearing the stalks. It is a crisp, wet sound, repeated over and over again. Rip, chew, rip, chew. Occasionally a ewe bleats. It is a guttural, vibrating sound that echoes off the valley walls. A lamb answers, its voice higher and thinner. The sounds float up to you on the wind, lonely and primal. You are not truly alone. Crouched in the grass at your feet is your dog. He is a border collie, black and white, with eyes that are intelligent and intense. He does not look at you. He looks at the sheep. He is motionless, his body tense like a coiled spring. His ears are pricked forward, catching every sound from the valley floor. He waits for your command. He lives for your command. You do not need to speak to him. You make a small clicking sound with your tongue against the roof of your mouth. Instantly, the dog is gone. He moves like a shadow, slipping through the heather. He runs wide, circling the flock, his belly low to the ground. He makes no sound. His paws strike the turf silently. He is a ghost dog, herding the gray river. You watch him work. It is a thing of beauty. He does not frighten the sheep. He simply exerts pressure. He appears on the left flank, and the sheep move right. He drops back, and they slow down. He is an extension of your will, acting at a distance. The light is fading fast now. The crimson in the west has turned to a deep charcoal. The first stars are struggling to appear through the breaks in the cloud cover, but they are faint and watery. It is time to bed the flock down. You cannot leave them scattered on the open moor at night. The wolves have been gone from these hills for a century, but there are stray dogs, foxes, and the danger of the cliffs. You whistle. It is a long, rising note that cuts through the wind. The dog responds instantly. He pushes the stragglers in. The flock begins to compress. The river becomes a lake. The sheep move closer together, seeking safety in numbers. The sound of their movement changes. It becomes louder, more urgent. The shuffling of hooves becomes a drumming. You begin to walk down the hill to meet them. Your heavy leather boots squelch in the damp soil. You navigate the uneven ground by instinct. your feet finding the solid tufts of grass among the boggy patches. You reach the edge of the flock. The smell hits you. It is a powerful, thick odor. It smells of lanolin, the grease in the wool. It smells of damp animal heat. It smells of manure and crushed grass. To a townsman, it might be offensive. To you, it is the smell of wealth, the smell of life. You guide the flock towards the night fold. It is a circular enclosure built of dry stone walls. The stones are gray granite, covered in patches of yellow lichen. They were piled here by men who have been dead for 500 years. The walls are 6 feet high, thick and impregnable. The entrance to the fold is narrow, just wide enough for 2 or 3 sheep to pass abreast. You stand by the gatepost. The dog stands on the opposite side. Together, you form a funnel. The sheep bulk at the entrance. They swirl and eddy like water hitting a dam. The lead you hesitates, sniffing the darkness inside the walls. You tap your crook against the ground. The vibration travels through the earth. You make a low, shushing sound. The lead you steps forward. She enters the fold. Once the first sheep enters, the rest follow. It is the law of the flock. Where one goes, all go. They begin to stream into the enclosure. Now begins the nightly ritual, the counting. You do not count them one by one. They move too fast for that. You count them in scores, 20 at a time. You watch the backs of the sheep flowing past your legs. 1 score, 2 score. Your lips move silently. You use the old counting rhymes of the shepherds, words that sound like ancient spells. Yin, tan, tethera, methera, pimp. The rhythm is hypnotic. The sheep are a blur of gray wool in the twilight. Back after back, wool after wool. You enter a trance state. Your eyes defocus slightly. You are not looking at individual animals. You are looking at the flow. You are checking for lumps. You were checking for open wounds. You were checking for the heaviness of sickness. But tonight, they are healthy. They are fat on the summer grass. They flow into the fold like heavy, gray oil. The last sheep scurries inside, anxious not to be left behind. The fold is full. Inside the stone circle, the sheep mill around for a moment, then begin to settle. The sound of their bleating dies down, replaced by the sound of cud chewing and heavy breathing. You pick up the hurdle. It is a gate made of woven hazel branches, a wattle fence panel. It is light but strong. You drag it across the opening. The wood scrapes against the stone of the wall. You take a length of rough rope and tie the hurdle to the gate post. You knot it securely. The knot is wet and stiff, but your fingers are strong. You test the gate. You rattle it. It holds. The flock is secure. They are contained within the circle of stone. The wind blows over their heads, but down behind the walls, they are sheltered. You turn your back on the fold. The work of the shepherd is done for the day. Now, you must attend to the shepherd himself. You look up at the sky. The clouds have thickened. They are low and heavy, dragging their bellies across the tops of the hills. The air pressure has dropped. You can feel it in your ears. A single drop of rain hits your cheek. It is cold and shocking. Then another hits your hand. The storm is coming. It is not a violent summer thunderstorm, but a steady, soaking Atlantic rain that will last all night. You begin to walk towards your own shelter. It is not far from the fold, nestled in the lee of a rocky outcrop. Your home for the summer is a shepherd's hut. It is a small, wooden structure mounted on 4 iron wheels. It looks like a small caravan or a large box. The wood of the hut is weathered to a silver gray by the sun and the rain. The roof is curved, covered in tarred felt to keep out the wet. It sits alone in the vast landscape, a tiny speck of human order in the chaos of nature. You approach the hut. The rain is starting to fall harder now. It drums lightly on the brim of your felt hat. It hisses as it hits the dry grass. You climb the 3 wooden steps to the door. You reach for the latch. It is made of iron, cold and wet. You lift it. The door swings inwards on rusty hinges. You step inside. The contrast is immediate. Outside, the world is vast, windy, and damp. Inside, the world is tiny, still, and dry. The hut is small, perhaps 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. You can touch the ceiling if you stand on your toes. It smells of pine wood, dried herbs, and stale tobacco smoke. It smells of the sheepskin rug on the floor. You close the door behind you. The latch falls into place. The wind is cut off. The sound of the rain changes. Outside, it was a hiss. Inside, it is a drumming on the roof. You are safe. You are enclosed. It is pitch black inside the hut. There are no windows, only a small shutter that is currently closed. You stand in the dark for a moment, listening. You can hear the dog panting softly at your feet. He has followed you in and collapsed on his rug by the door. You can hear the wet shake of his coat as he sprays water onto the floorboards. You can hear the rain intensifying on the curved roof above your head. It is a comforting sound. It creates a barrier of noise between you and the silence of the moors. You reach out in the darkness. You know the space intimately. You know exactly where the table is. You know exactly where the tinderbox lies. Your hand finds the rough wood of the table. Your fingers brush against a clay jug. You find the metal box. You open the tinderbox. You take out the flint and steel. You strike them. A shower of sparks illuminates the small space for a split second, revealing the wooden walls and the narrow bed in the corner. You catch a spark on the charcloth. You blow on it. The glow illuminates your face, casting deep shadows under your eyes. You light a tallow candle. The flame sputters, then catches. A warm, yellow sphere of light expands in the room. The hut is revealed. It is simple. A narrow bunk bed built into the wall. A small cast iron stove in the corner. A wooden table and a single chair. Hooks on the walls holding tools, ropes, and dried herbs. It is a monk's cell, but it is yours. You begin to shed the day. You unfasten your heavy woolen cloak. It is heavy with rainwater. You shake it out, sending droplets flying across the room. You hang it on a peg near the stove, where it will steam and dry during the night. You take off your hat. Your hair is flattened and damp with sweat. You run your hand through it. You sit down on the chair to remove your boots. The leather is soaked and dark. You struggle to pull them off. Your heel slips out with a suction sound. You set the boots aside. You are wearing thick woolen socks. You wiggle your toes. The wool is damp, but your feet are warm. The hut is dry, but it is getting cold. The temperature on the moors drops rapidly at night. You need fire. You turn to the small iron stove. It is a queeny stove, squat in black, bolted to the floor. You open the small iron door. The grate is empty. You reach into the wood box. You take out a handful of dried heather stems and some peat blocks. Peat is the fuel of the high hills. It is ancient, compressed earth. It burns slowly, with a steady heat and a distinctive, aromatic smoke. You arrange the heather and the peat in the belly of the stove. You hold the candle flame to the dry heather. It catches instantly with a crackling sound. The fire spreads to the peat. You close the stove door. You adjust the vent. Soon, you hear the roar of the draft. The stove begins to tick and ping as the metal expands with the heat. A thin wisp of smoke escapes into the room before being drawn up the chimney pipe. It smells earthy and sweet. It is the smell of the moors burning. It is a heavy, sedative smell. You sit back in your chair. You stretch your legs out towards the stove. You can feel the heat beginning to radiate from the black iron. It warms the soles of your feet. Outside, the rain is now a deluge. It hammers on the roof. It lashes against the wooden walls. The wind shakes the hut gently on its springs. But the storm only makes the inside feel warmer. You are the captain of this small wooden ship, sailing through a sea of night and rain. The sheep are safe. The dog is safe. You are safe. The long night of the shepherd has begun. The little cast-iron stove has won its battle against the damp air. The chill that pervaded the hot when you first entered has been chased into the corners and then banished entirely through the cracks in the floorboards. The room is now filled with a dry, aggressive heat that radiates from the black metal belly of the Queenie stove. The peat blocks inside are glowing with a deep, sullen red heat, consuming themselves slowly and releasing their ancient, earthy perfume into the room. You reach for the heavy iron kettle that sits on the floor beside the wood box. It is black with soot, a veteran of 1,000 fires. You lift the lid, the metal grating against metal. You take the clay water jug from the table and pour the water into the kettle. The liquid falls with a clear, resonant splashing sound, swirling around the bottom. You fill it to the brim. You place the kettle onto the flat, round hot plate on top of the stove. The heavy iron settles into place with a solid thud. Almost immediately, the water at the bottom begins to react to the heat. You can hear a faint sizzling, like distant static, as the first bubbles form. Before you tend to your own hunger, you must tend to the beast. The dog is the reason the sheep are safe. He earns his keep before you do. He is lying on the rag rug, his head resting on his paws, watching you with amber eyes that reflect the candlelight. His coat is still damp, steaming slightly in the warmth of the room. You take a tin bowl from the shelf. You reach into a sack of oatmeal. You scoop a handful of the dry oats into the bowl. The grains hiss as they slide against the metal. You add a little bit of dripping, animal fat saved from your last trip to the village. You pour a splash of hot water from the kettle, which hasn't boiled yet, but is warm enough to melt the fat. You stir the mixture with a wooden spoon. It turns into a thick, gray mash. It smells savory and bland. You place the bowl on the floor. The dog stands up. He stretches, his claws clicking on the wooden floorboards. He approaches the bowl. He eats with a rhythmic, slapping sound, his tongue lapping up the warm porridge. It is a wet, eager sound. You watch him for a moment. In this vast, empty landscape, the sound of another living creature eating is a comfort. It breaks the solitude. Now, your turn. Your larder is simple. You do not have the luxury of an oven or a pantry here. You have what keeps: cheese, onions, hardtack bread, dried meat. You sit at the small wooden table. The surface is scarred with knife marks and stained with tea rings. You place a wooden board in front of you. You take an onion from the net bag hanging on the wall. The skin is papery and brown, rustling dryly as you peel it away to reveal the pale, shiny flesh beneath. You pick up your pocket knife. You unfold the blade. The steel is dark gray, sharpened to a razor edge on a whetstone. You slice the onion. The knife cuts through the crisp layers with a crunching, tearing sound. The smell of the raw onion rises up, sharp and biting. It stings your eyes slightly, but it is a fresh, clean smell that cuts through the smoke of the peat. You slice it into thick rings. You place a small iron skillet on the stove next to the kettle. You drop a knob of butter into the pan. It melts instantly, sliding across the hot metal and bubbling furiously. You toss the onion rings into the butter. A loud hiss fills the small room. The onions begin to fry. The smell changes from sharp to sweet. It is the smell of caramelization, a rich, golden aroma that makes your stomach rumble. You cut a thick wedge of hard cheese. It is a local cheese, crumbly and white, with a rind like stone. You place the cheese into the pan with the onions. It begins to sweat, then melt, losing its shape and turning into a pool of white lava bubbling around the golden onions. You take a round of oat cake, a flat, hard bread that lasts for months. It is too hard to bite into directly. You have to break it. You snap it in half with your hands. It gives way with a sharp crack, scattering dry crumbs onto the table. You dip the hard bread into the pan, scooping up the melted cheese and the soft onions. You lift it to your mouth. You blow on it to cool it. You eat. The food is simple but hot. The cheese is salty and rich, the onions are sweet, and the oatcake provides a nutty crunch. You chew slowly. You are not in a rush. The sheep are safe. The door is locked. The night is yours. The kettle begins to sing. It starts as a low hum, then rises in pitch to a steady, whistling note. The steam shoots out of the spout in a fierce white jet, hitting the wall of the hot and condensing into water droplets. You lift the kettle. The bubbling stops. You pour the boiling water into a tin mug containing a handful of dried tea leaves. The water turns dark brown instantly. You stir it. The spoon chimes against the side of the tin mug. You cup your hands around the mug. The heat transfers into your palms, soothing the stiffness in your fingers. You lift the mug to your face and inhale the steam. It smells of tannins and smoke. You take a sip. It scalds your tongue pleasantly, washing away the grease of the cheese. Dinner is done. You wipe the skillet clean with a rag and hang it back on its nail. You brush the crumbs from the table into your hand and toss them into the stove. The fire flares up briefly as it consumes the dry oats. Now is the time for maintenance. A shepherd relies on his gear. If your gear fails, you fail. You take your leather belt off the peg. You inspect it in the candlelight. There is a weak spot near the buckle, where the leather has cracked from the constant wetting and drying. If it snaps, you lose your knife sheath and your pouch. It needs to be mended. You take out your repair kit. It is a small roll of oilcloth containing needles, waxed thread, and a block of beeswax. You cut a length of linen thread. It is pale and fuzzy. You pick up the block of beeswax. It is a dark yellow lump, smelling of honey and the hive. You press the thread into the wax with your thumb. You pull the thread through. It cuts into the wax with a soft slicing sound. You do this 3 times. The friction warms the wax, and it coats the thread, turning it smooth, stiff, and waterproof. It is now strong enough to bind leather. You lay the belt on the table. You take an awl, a tool with a wooden handle and a sharp metal spike. You need to make new holes for the stitching. The leather is thick and tough, like wood. You press the point of the awl into the leather. You push down with the palm of your hand. The leather resists. You twist the handle. The metal grinds through the fibers. With a sudden pop, the awl punches through to the other side, stabbing into the wood of the table. You pull it out. You make another hole, and another. You are creating a line of perforations. The sound is rhythmic. Push, twist, pop, push, twist, pop. You thread 2 needles, one on each end of the wax thread. This is the saddle stitch, the strongest stitch known to man. Even if the thread breaks at one point, the rest will hold. You push the first needle through the hole. You pull the thread until it is centered. You take the second needle. You push it through the same hole from the opposite direction. You grab both ends of the thread. You pull them tight. Zip. The wax thread slides against the leather with a quiet, friction-heavy sound. You pull until the stitch sinks deep into the groove of the leather. You move to the next hole. Left needle through. Right needle through. Pull. Zip. Left needle. Right needle. Pull. Zip. It is a hypnotic, repetitive motion. Your hands fall into a trance. You do not need to look closely. Your fingers feel the way. The candlelight glints off the brass buckle and the steel needles. The hut is silent, save for the storm outside and the soft zip of the thread. The rain is still hammering on the roof, a constant chaotic noise that highlights the ordered, rhythmic silence inside. You reach the end of the crack. You tie off the thread with a complex knot. You take your knife and cut the ends close to the leather. You pick up the belt. You bend it back and forth. The repair holds. The crack is sealed. The leather is strong again. You take a rag and dip it into a tin of mutton tallow. You rub the grease into the leather. The dry skin drinks it up, turning a rich, dark brown. You rub until the leather shines. It smells of fat and care. You hang the belt back on the peg. It is ready for tomorrow, a small victory against entropy, a small act of order in a chaotic world. You look at the hourglass on the shelf. The sand has run through. An hour has passed since you came in. The hut is fully warm now. The moisture has been driven out of your clothes. The dog is asleep, his paws twitching as he dreams of chasing rabbits. The fire in the stove has settled down to a steady, glowing bed of peat. You feel the heaviness in your eyelids. The meal, the warmth, and the repetitive work have combined to sedate you. The adrenaline of the day is gone. You pick up your mug of tea. It has cooled, but it is still warm. You take a final sip. You stare at the candle flame. It stands straight and tall in the still air of the hut. It is a tiny, captive star. You are not ready for sleep yet, but you are done with work. Now comes the time for waiting, the time for just being. You lean back in your chair. The wood creaks softly. You listen to the rain. It comes in waves, driven by the wind. It lashes the side of the hut, then eases off, then lashes again. It is the breath of the storm, and you are safe inside the lungs of the wooden box. The storm has evolved. In the early evening, it was merely rain falling from a heavy sky. Now, deep into the night, it has become a living, breathing entity. The wind has shifted to the north, stripping the warmth from the air and hurling it across the blackened moors. It strikes the shepherd's hut not with a steady pressure, but with violent, rhythmic gusts that feel like the blows of a giant fist. You sit in your wooden chair, your body braced unconsciously against the movement. The hut is built on springs and iron wheels to absorb the shocks of the road, and tonight, those springs are working hard. The floor beneath your boots shifts gently, tilting a fraction of an inch to the left, then rocking back to the right. It is a subtle motion, like the gentle rolling of a ship at anchor in a swell. To a stranger, it might be unsettling, inducing a sense of vertigo. To you, it is a lullaby. It signifies that the structure is yielding to the wind rather than fighting it, bending so it does not break. You close your eyes and become an instrument of hearing. You dissect the sound of the wind. It is not one single noise. It is a choir. There is the deep, bass note of the wind rushing through the valley floor below, a hollow roar like a distant train or a waterfall. Above that, there is the tenor scream of the air being forced through the jagged rocks of the outcrop behind the hut. And closest of all, there is the soprano whistling of the drafts seeking entry through the keyhole and the gaps in the window shutter. To pass the time, and to calm the nerves that the storm inevitably frays, you turn to an old friend. You reach for the small wooden box on the shelf. You slide the lid open. Inside lies your clay pipe, its bowl darkened by years of burning, and a pouch of dark, twist tobacco. You take out the tobacco. It is a dense, rope-like coil of dried leaves, cured with molasses. It smells sweet, earthy, and pungent. You take your knife, the same knife that sliced the onion, and cut a few thin slices from the rope. You rub the slices between your palms. The friction warms the tobacco, breaking it down into a coarse shack. The smell fills the small space, masking the scent of the wet dog and the peat smoke. You pack the bowl of the pipe. You press the tobacco down with your thumb, testing the draw. It must be firm, but not tight. If it is too loose, it burns hot and fast. If it is too tight, it will not light. You find the perfect density. You take a spill, a thin strip of wood, from a jar. You open the stove door. The heat flares out, reddening your face. You thrust the tip of the spill into the glowing peat. It bursts into a small yellow flame. You bring the flame to the bowl of the pipe. You suck air through the stem. The tobacco hisses as the flame touches it. It rises up, expanding in the heat. You puff rhythmically, Short, sharp breaths. A cloud of blue-gray smoke billows around your head, caught in the draft of the hut before drifting lazily towards the ceiling vent. You lean back, the pipe clamped firmly between your teeth. The smoke tastes rich and heavy on your tongue. Your hands, idle now that the mending is done, seek occupation. A shepherd's hands are never truly still. Stillness leads to worry. You reach into the corner and pick up a length of blackthorn wood you found in a hedge weeks ago. It has been drying in the rafters of the hut, seasoning in the smoky warmth. It is hard, knotty wood, notorious for its toughness, but prized for the beautiful, dark walking sticks it produces. You take your knife again. You begin to strip the bark. The blade bites into the rough skin of the wood. It makes a dry, rasping sound as it peels away long strips of bark, revealing the pale, creamy wood beneath. The contrast between the dark bark and the light sapwood is stark in the candlelight. You carve slowly. You are not trying to impose a shape on the wood. You are trying to find the shape that is already there. You follow the grain. You navigate around the thorns and the knots. You are smoothing, refining, polishing with steel. The shavings curl away from the blade, falling onto the floorboards in a pile of wooden ringlets. They smell green and sharp, a wilder scent than the seasoned pine of the hut. As you whittle, your mind drifts out into the storm. The wind has a way of playing tricks on the human ear. It modulates its pitch, creating patterns that sound frighteningly like human voices. You hear a sudden shriek outside. It sounds like a woman screaming in the distance. You freeze, your knife hovering over the wood. The dog lifts his head, his ears twitching. You listen. Silence for a moment. Then the wind gusts again. The scream returns, but this time you recognize it. It is the wind tearing through the gorse bushes on the ridge. The stiff, thorny branches vibrate in the gale, creating a high-pitched keen. You relax. It is not a woman. It is just the physics of air and wood. Then, a low muttering. It sounds like a group of men talking in hushed tones right outside the door. You can almost make out the words. Are they cattle thieves? Are they lost travelers? You hold your breath. The muttering continues, rising and falling in conversation, but it never resolves into language. It is the sound of the wind buffeting the chimney pipe, creating a resonance in the metal flue. You smile to yourself. These are the gabble ratchets, the phantom hounds of the old folklore, or the spirits of the air. When you are alone for weeks on end, the mind populates the void. It creates company out of nothing. You take a long draw on your pipe, blowing a smoke ring that disperses the ghosts. You set the stick aside. The carving requires focus, and the flickering light is straining your eyes. You need a different distraction. You reach for the only book in the hut. It is not a Bible, but an almanac, the shepherd's calendar. It is a small, battered volume, bound in cheap leather that is peeling at the corners. The pages are yellow and swollen with damp, their edges stained with the grease of many suppers. You open it carefully. The spine cracks with a dry snapping sound. You turn the pages. They rustle softly, like dry leaves rubbing together. You read the entries for November. It is a mixture of practical advice, astronomy, and superstition. Expect great winds and rain when the moon is in its way. True enough, you think. To cure the rot in sheep, take the root of comfrey. You trace the lines of text with your finger. The ink is faded, turning brown with age. You look at the woodcut illustrations, crude drawings of the zodiac signs, the ram, the bull, the crab. You look at the charts of the tides. You are 50 miles from the sea, but the tides matter. They pull on the earth just as they pull on the water. A high tide brings storms. Reading this book connects you to the wider world. It reminds you that the storm outside is not a personal assault, but a planetary event. It is happening everywhere. The same wind battering your hut is filling the sails of ships in the North Sea and shaking the windows of the great cathedrals in the cities. You are part of a vast, interconnected system of weather and time. You look down at the dog. He has fallen into a deep sleep. His paws are running in the air, chasing invisible rabbits across dream meadows. He makes small, muffled yipping sounds, his lips twitching over his teeth. Yip yip. It is a tender sound. In his waking life, he is a serious professional, a creature of discipline and instinct. In his sleep, he is a puppy again. You watch him. You wonder what a dog dreams of. Does he dream of the sheep? Does he dream of the warmth of the fire? Or does he dream of the wolves that his ancestors fought? Suddenly, he wakes. His eyes snap open. He lifts his head instantly. All sleep vanished. He stares at the door. A low growl rumbles in his chest. It is a vibration you feel through the floorboards rather than hear. You freeze. You put down the book. You take the pipe from your mouth. Something is out there. You listen. The wind is howling, masking everything. But then you hear it. Scratch, scratch. It is a distinct, mechanical sound against the wood of the door. It stops. Then again. Scratch, scratch. It is not the wind. The wind pushes. This is something sharp. Is it a fox trying to find shelter? Is it a badger? You stand up slowly. You pick up the heavy iron poker from the stove. It is a formidable weapon in a tight space. The dog is standing now, the hackles on his back raised in a ridge of stiff hair. He does not bark. He knows the drill. Silence before the strike. You approach the door. You can feel the cold draft leaking around the frame. You listen at the wood. Thump. Something soft hits the door. Then a small, pitiful sound. Mew. You lower the poker. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. You lift the latch. You open the door just a crack. The wind tries to rip it from your hand, but you hold it firm. A small, sodden shape darts between your legs and into the warmth of the hut. It is the barn cat from the farm in the valley. It must have followed you up or been caught out hunting when the storm broke. It stands in the center of the room, dripping wet, looking miserable and indignant. Its fur is spiked with rain. It shakes itself violently, sending a spray of water across the room. The dog relaxes. He sniffs the cat, then turns away with a dismissive sneeze. He returns to his rug. It is just the cat, not a wolf, not a demon. You close the door and bolt it. You put another piece of peat on the fire. The cat walks to the stove. It sits as close to the heat as it dares. It begins to groom itself, its rough tongue rasping against its wet fur. You sit back down. You pick up your pipe. It has gone out. You light it again. Now there are three of you. The man, the dog, the cat, an unlikely family bound together by the storm. The presence of the cat changes the atmosphere. The hut feels less like a lonely outpost and more like an ark. You are preserving life against the chaos. The air in the hut is getting thicker. The smoke from the pipe, the steam from the drying animals, and the fumes from the peat fire combine to create a dense, drowsy atmosphere. It creates a halo around the candle flame. You feel your own eyelids growing heavy. The fear of the storm has passed. The adrenaline spike from the noise at the door has faded, leaving a pleasant exhaustion in its wake. You look at the hourglass. The sand is running low again. It is deep in the night now. The hour of the wolf is approaching here too. You put the almanac back on the shelf. You tap out the ash from your pipe into the stove. Tap, tap. You brush the wood shavings into a pile. The wind is still screaming outside, but it sounds further away now. It has become white noise, a constant, rhythmic backdrop that pushes you towards sleep rather than keeping you awake. You are secure. The walls are thick. The fire is warm. The stories in the wind can wait until morning. The time for sitting is over. The candle has burned down to a stub, the flame drowning in a pool of liquid tallow. The shadows in the corners of the hut are growing longer and bolder, creeping towards the center of the room. It is time to surrender the day. You stand up from your chair, your joints stiff from the damp air. You move to the stove for the final task of the night. You cannot let the fire go out, for waking up to a freezing hot is a misery you wish to avoid. You must bank the fire. You take the iron shovel and cover the glowing peat embers with a layer of ash. This suffocates the flame, but keeps the heart of the heat alive. The bright orange glow disappears, replaced by a dull, gray warmth. The stove will sleep now, just like you, burning slowly and steadily until dawn. You pinch out the candle flame with your wetted thumb and forefinger. The light vanishes instantly. For a moment, you are blind. The darkness is absolute, pressing against your eyes. But slowly, the faint red glow from the stove vent reasserts itself, painting a dim, bloody square on the floorboards. You navigate the darkness by touch and memory. 3 steps to the left, you reach out and find the wooden frame of your bunk. It is built into the back wall of the hut, raised high off the floor to escape the drafts and to maximize the storage space underneath. You climb into the bed. The mattress is a canvas sack stuffed with dried heather and bracken. It rustles loudly as you settle your weight onto it, a sound like walking through autumn leaves. It is not soft like a feather bed, but it is firm and aromatic. It smells of the wild hills, a dry, dusty scent that counters the dampness of the night. You do not undress fully. The night is too cold for that. You keep your woolen shirt and your thick socks on. You pull the covers up. You do not have sheets. You have blankets. 3 of them. They are heavy, rough-woven wool, gray and scratchy. They weigh down on you, pressing you into the mattress. The bed is cold at first. The wool feels like ice against your hands. You curl up into a ball, tucking your knees to your chest, preserving your core heat. You shiver, a violent tremor that runs from your shoulders to your feet. But the magic of the wool is swift. The blankets trap the heat radiating from your body. Slowly, a microclimate forms under the covers. The cold retreats. A delicious, heavy warmth begins to spread through your limbs. Your muscles, tight from the cold and the work, begin to unwind. You extend your legs, pushing your feet down into the cool corners of the bed, claiming the space. You pull the top blanket right up to your nose. The wool is coarse against your cheek, prickling your skin slightly. It smells intensely of sheep. It smells of lanolin, that greasy, natural oil that waterproofs the fleece. It is a smell that permeates your entire life. To you, it is not a smell, it is the atmosphere. You lie on your back, staring up into the darkness where the curved wooden ceiling must be. The storm outside is still raging. The wind hits the broad side of the hut, and the whole structure groans. Because the hut rests on iron wheels and springs, it is not static. It reacts to the wind. It sways gently, a tiny movement to the left, a tiny movement to the right. It creates a sensation of floating. You are a passenger on a land ship navigating a gale. You listen to the rain. It is no longer a distinct drumming. It has become a continuous roar, a wall of white noise that encircles you. It seals you in. The world outside the wooden walls has ceased to exist. There is only this box, this bed, and this warmth. Your body is comfortable, but your mind is still active. It floats in the space between waking and sleeping. The smell of the lanolin in the blanket triggers a memory. It pulls you away from the dark winter night. It pulls you back in time, back to the summer. The darkness of the hut dissolves. You see sunlight, bright, blinding, yellow sunlight. It is June, the clipping time. You are not alone on the high moor. You are in the valley farm. The great barn doors are thrown open. The air is thick with golden dust motes dancing in the shafts of sun. The barn is full of noise. Not the lonely wind, but human noise. Laughter, shouting, the barking of a dozen dogs, and the relentless bleating of 1,000 sheep protesting the loss of their coats. You see the shearers, 10 men, sitting on wooden benches, each with a sheep clamped between his knees. You are one of them. You are younger, your back is stronger. You are sweating. The heat is intense. It smells of hot fleece, sweat, and sweet cider. You can hear the sound of the shears. Snip, snip, snip. It is a rhythmic, metallic clicking that fills the barn. The twin blades of the hand shears bite through the greasy wool. It sounds like a barber's scissors, but louder, tougher. You feel the oil on your hands. Your arms are slick with lanolin up to the elbows. You work fast. You have to. The fleece must come off in one piece. You turn the sheep. The animal is passive, heavy against your legs. You run the shears down the flank. The gray wool falls away, revealing the startlingly white skin underneath. It looks like peeling a fruit. The fleece falls to the floorboards with a soft, heavy thud. It is a massive pile of gray clouds. The wool boy runs over, gathers it up in his arms, and runs to the packing table. You remember the break. The farmer's wife coming out with a basket. The taste of the food. Cold pork pies with jelly. Fresh white bread, so different from your hard oat cakes. And the cider. Someone pours you a mug of rough cider from a stoneware jug. The liquid gurgles as it hits the cup. You drink it down in one go. It is cool, sharp, and taste of apples and oak. It cuts through the dust in your throat. You remember the camaraderie, the jokes shouted over the bleating sheep, the news from the village, the feeling of being part of a tribe. You are not the lonely watcher on the hill. You are a worker among workers. The sun beats down on the slate roof of the barn, making the timbers crack. A swallow flies in through the open door, swooping low over the heads of the men, chirping wildly. The memory shifts. The sun goes down in the memory. The shearing is done. The barn is silent. The floor swept clean, smelling of emptiness. The men have gone. The cider is drunk. You are walking back up the hill. The summer evening is warm and buzzing with insects. The heather is purple and vibrant. But as you walk, the light begins to fail. The purple turns to gray. The warm breeze turns cold. The buzz of the insects turns into the roar of the rain. The image dissolves. The bright barn vanishes. You are back in the dark hot. The contrast is shocking. The silence of the hot, despite the storm, feels heavy after the noise of the memory. The cold air on your face feels sharp after the memory of the summer sweat. You realize that summer is a foreign country. You are an exile in the land of winter. You shiver again, pulling the blankets tighter. You bury your face in the wool. The smell is the same, the lanolin, but the context has changed. In summer, the wool was a burden to be removed. In winter, it is the shield that saves your life. You hear the dog sigh in his sleep. Long, shuddering exhale. He shifts on the rug, his claws scratching against the wood floor. The cat, curled somewhere near the stove, makes a small, trilling sound. They are here with you, the living warmth. You are not as alone as you feel. You turn onto your side. The bunk creaks. The straw mattress reshapes itself around your hip. You face the wooden wall. You can feel the cold radiating from the timber, just inches from your nose. You listen to the wind again. It has changed its tone. It is no longer an angry scream. It is a deep, mournful moaning. It sounds tired. The storm is expending its energy. The weight of the 3 blankets feels heavier now. It is a comforting pressure, like a heavy hand resting on you. It suppresses the urge to move. It pins you down. Your body begins to accept the stillness. The restless energy of the mind, stirred up by the memory of the shearing, begins to settle like sediment in a pond. You focus on your feet. They are finally warm. A tingling sensation of heat radiates from your toes. You focus on your hands. They are tucked under your armpits for warmth. You let go of the summer. You let go of the barn. You accept the winter. You accept the dark. Your breathing slows down. It synchronizes with the swaying of the hot. Rock, exhale. Rock, inhale. You are drifting towards the edge of sleep. The sound of the rain becomes a texture rather than a noise. It is a gray, fuzzy static that wraps around your brain. You are a seed waiting in the frozen earth. You are a bear in a cave. You are a shepherd in a box, waiting for the light, waiting for the silence, waiting. You are deep in the well of sleep, floating in the warm, woolen darkness of the bog. For hours, the roar of the wind and the hammering of the rain have been the soundtrack to your dreams, a constant, chaotic lullaby that pinned you to the mattress. But then the world changes. You wake with a start. Your eyes snap open in the dark. Your heart is hammering against your ribs. You lie perfectly still, straining your ears, trying to understand what danger has roused you. It is not a noise. It is the absence of noise. The wind has died. The rain has stopped. The rhythmic swaying of the hut has ceased. The wooden box is stationary, anchored once again to the earth. The silence is sudden and absolute. It presses against your ears, heavy and thick. After the violence of the storm, this stillness feels unnatural, almost ominous. It is the silence of a held breath. You lie there for a moment, disoriented. The air in the hut has cooled significantly. The fire in the stove must be low. You can see your own breath puffing out in the dark, a faint gray ghost in the gloom. You know what you must do. A shepherd cannot trust the silence. A sudden drop in wind often means a shift in the weather, a change that could threaten the flock. You must go out. You must check the fold. You groan softly as you push back the heavy blankets. The cold air of the room rushes in to claim your body heat, stinging your skin through your woolen shirt. You swing your legs out of the bunk. Your feet hunt for the floorboards, but you find your thick socks first. You fumble in the dark for your boots. The leather is cold and stiff, resisting your feet. You force them on, stamping your heels down to settle them. You reach for your cloak hanging by the stove. It is still damp from the evening, heavy and smelling of wet wool. You swing it over your shoulders, the weight of it familiar and grounding. You pick up your hat. You pick up your crook. You are armored again. The dog is already awake. He is standing by the door, his nose pressed to the crack at the bottom, sniffing deeply. He looks back at you, his eyes reflecting the faint glow from the stove vent. He does not whine. He is silent, sensing the change in the world outside. You walk to the door. You place your hand on the iron latch. It is freezing, biting into your palm. You lift it. The metal clacks loudly in the quiet room. You push the door open. You step out onto the wooden stairs, and you stop dead. The world has vanished. The dark, wet moors of the evening are gone. In their place is a landscape of blinding, luminous white. While you slept, the rain turned to snow. A heavy, silent snowfall has blanketed the hills. It covers the heather, the rocks, the mud. It smooths out the roughness of the land, turning the jagged wilderness into a soft, undulating sea of white. The clouds have broken. The moon is out. It is a full winter moon, high and bright, hanging in a sky of polished obsidian. Its light reflects off the fresh snow, creating a ghostly, blue-white illumination that is almost as bright as day. You can see for miles. You can see the distant peaks of the mountains, shining like silver teeth against the stars. The air is incredibly crisp. It tastes of ice and ozone. It freezes the inside of your nose instantly. It is pure, clean, and sharp. You descend the steps. The wood is slippery with a thin layer of ice. You step onto the grass. Crunch. The sound is loud in the silence. The snow is not deep yet, perhaps 2 inches, but it has frozen slightly on top, forming a crust. Every step breaks the crust. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The dog bounds ahead of you. He is confused by the change in texture. He sniffs the snow, sneezing as the powder enters his nose. He leaves a trail of black paw prints in the pristine white. You walk towards the stone fold. Your breath trails behind you like smoke from a locomotive. You wrap your cloak tighter, pulling the collar up to your ears. The cold here is different from the wet cold of the rain. It is a dry stillness that seeps through the layers of wool slowly but surely. You arrive at the sheep pen. The stone walls are covered in white snow. Lichens are hidden. The structure looks like an ancient ruin. You approach the wall to look inside. The sheep are there. They haven't moved. They are huddled in a tight cluster in the middle of the fence, away from the walls. They are like a single gray island in the middle of a white sea. The heat rising from 500 bodies has prevented the snow from falling directly on them. Instead, a low mist hangs over the flock, their collective breaths. It gleams in the moonlight, a cloud of life hanging in the air. You listen. You can hear their breathing. A soft, rhythmic brawl. Occasionally you can hear the sound of a hoof on the stone. They are calm. They are warm. Herd instinct has saved them. The smell of the sheep pen is strong. The warm, animalistic smell rises into the freezing air, the smell of safety and survival. It comforts you. They are good. The walls have withstood the test. The door has resisted. You turn away from the sheep and look out at the landscape. You are the only men awake in the world. The village in the valley is hidden under a layer of fog and snow. There are no lights, no smoke. You feel small. The scale of the hills, covered in this uniform white, is overwhelming. You are just a tiny, black vertical speck in a horizontal white world. But there is no fear. The storm has passed. The violence is gone. What remains is a beautiful, indifferent peace. The earth is sleeping under its winter coat. You look up at the stars. They are sharp and unblinking. Orion the hunter strides across the southern sky, his belt perfectly aligned. You trace the shape of the plow. These are the same stars your grandfather watched from this same hill. They are the only things that haven't changed. The cold begins to penetrate your boots. Your toes start to numb. It is time to go back. You whistle softly to the dog. He is digging in a snowdrift, hunting for a vole. He lifts his head, snow dusting his muzzle. He trots back to you. You walk back towards the hut. It sits on its wheels, a dark box with a chimney pipe. A thin wisp of smoke rises straight up into the still air. It looks fragile, a wooden matchbox on the side of a mountain. But it is your fortress. You climb the stairs. You scrape the snow from your boots on the scraper bar. Scrape, scrape. You do not want to bring the meltwater inside. You open the door and step back inside. The warmth hits you like a physical embrace. It smells of peat, tobacco, and dog. It is the smell of civilization. You close the door and bolt it. You lean against the wood for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the darkness. The silence inside is different from the silence outside. Outside, it was expansive. Inside, it is intimate. You take off your cloak. It is stiff with cold. You hang it back on the peg. You take off your boots. Your feet tingle as the blood returns. You go to the stove. You open the door. The peat has burned down to a dark red slumber. It needs waking up. You take the iron poker. You stir the ash. The embers glow brighter, disturbed from their sleep. You add a fresh block of peat. It settles onto the coals with a soft thud. You watch until the edges begin to glow. You put the kettle back on the hot plate. You don't need tea, but the sound of the water warming is a companion. You climb back into your bunk. The bed is still warm from your body. You slide into the hollow you left behind. It welcomes you back. You pull the blankets up. The wool feels even better now. The contrast with the freezing air outside makes the bed feel luxurious. You lie on your back. You picture the sheep in the fold, breathing together in the moonlight. You picture the snow falling silently on the roof. The interruption has been good. It has confirmed your safety. The anxiety of the storm is gone. Now, there is only the clean, quiet night. Your breathing slows down again. Inhale, exhale. You drift. The hut is still. The world is white. The sheep are safe. Sleep returns, deeper and heavier than before. Morning arrives not with a burst of sunlight, but with a gradual, steely brightening of the air. You open your eyes. The hut is silent. The storm that battered the walls all night has vanished completely, leaving behind a stillness so profound it feels like pressure in your ears. You lie in your bunk for a moment, assessing the temperature. It is freezing. The fire in the Queenie stove has burned out hours ago, leaving only a cold iron box. The heat of the room has leaked away into the vast winter landscape. You look at the wooden wall next to your head. Along the cracks between the planks, where the draft whistles through, a delicate line of white frost has formed on the inside. It glitters in the pale light like diamond dust. Your breath puffs out in thick white clouds, hanging in the stagnant air before slowly sinking towards the floor. You do not want to move. The nest of blankets is the only warm place in the world. You curl your toes, feeling the heat trapped in the wall. But the day has begun. The animals need you. The fire needs you. You push the blankets back. The cold air clamps down on you instantly. It is a dry, sharp cold that tightens the skin on your face. You move quickly, driven by the instinct to seek warmth. You pull your thick woolen sweater over your head. It smells of wood smoke from the night before. You stamp your feet into your boots, which are stiff and unyielding. You go straight to the stove. You open the iron door. Inside, there is nothing but gray, powdery ash. You stir it with the poker, hoping for a spark, a dormant ember, but the grate is cold. The fire is dead. You must start from the beginning. You crumple a handful of dry bracken and stuff it into the box. You arrange small sticks of inling in a pyramid. You strike your flint. The spark lands. You blow gently. The smoke curls up, gray and acrid, before the orange flame catches. You feed the fire slowly. First the twigs, then the thicker branches, and finally the heavy blocks of peat. The stove begins to tick as the metal expands. It is the sound of the hut waking up. You are thirsty. You reach for the water bucket near the door. You look inside. The surface of the water is solid. A disk of clear ice, an inch thick, has sealed the liquid away. You pick up the metal ladle. You strike the center of the ice. It cracks with a sharp, ringing sound that echoes in the small room. You strike again. The ice shatters into shards that bob in the dark water beneath. You scoop up the water, the ice chips clinking against the ladle. You fill the kettle and place it on the stove. It will take longer to boil this morning. The water starts at freezing point. You watch the condensation form on the cold iron of the kettle, turning into droplets that hiss as they run down onto the hot plate. The stove is roaring now, pushing back the frost. You walk to the small window shutter. You unlatch it and push it open. The light floods in. It is blinding. The sun has just crested the horizon, a pale yellow disk in a white sky. The light reflects off the miles of snow, amplifying the brightness. You have to squint. The world outside is a sculpture of white and blue. The snowdrifts are carved into smooth, sweeping curves by the wind. The fence posts were tall hats of snow. The silence is absolute. No birds are singing. The wind is gone. It is a frozen photograph. You look towards the sheepfold. It is a white circle in the white landscape. You can see the dark shapes of the sheep moving slowly inside. They are shaking the snow from their fleeces. They are alive. There is no rush this morning. The snow is too deep to move the flock yet. They are safer in the fold than out on the treacherous slopes. You have time. You decide to make something warm and filling. You take the last of the hard bread. You place it directly on the hot plate of the stove. The bread begins to toast. The smell of scorching grain fills the hot, masking the smell of the damp dock. You turn the bread. It is marked with dark stripes from the iron. You cut a slice of bacon, salted, cured pork belly. You lay it in the skillet. It begins to sizzle immediately. The fat renders out, turning clear and liquid. The smell is rich and savory. It wakes the dog, who lifts his head from his paws and sniffs the air hopefully. You eat standing up by the stove, soaking the heat into your legs. You tear the hot, toasted bread and dip it into the bacon fat. It is greasy, salty, and incredibly satisfying. It fuels you against the cold. You toss the rind to the dog, who catches it in midair with a snap of his jaws. You stand by the open shutter, sipping a mug of hot tea. You watch the sun climb higher. As it rises, it begins to have an effect. You see a drip of water fall from the eaves of the roof. Then another. The icicles hanging from the gutter are beginning to sweat. They glisten in the sun. Drip, drip, drip. It is the first sound of the outside world. The sun is winking. The grip of the frost is loosening, just a fraction. You see a crow fly across the valley. It is a stark black shape against the white snow. It caws loudly. Caw, caw. The sound carries for miles in the thin air. It lands on a fence post, shaking a dusting of snow onto the ground. You finish your tea. You feel strong again. The lethargy of the cold morning has been burned away by the food and the fire. You put on your cloak. It is dry now, warm from hanging by the stove. You pull on your leather gloves. You pick up your crook. You look around the hut. It is tidy. The bed is made. The fire is banked. It is a good home, but it is too small to hold you all day. You need the sky. You whistle to the dog. He springs up, his tail wagging. He knows the signal. Work time. You open the door. The air is still freezing, but the sun on your face feels good. You step out onto the wooden stairs. The wood is no longer slippery. The ice has sublimated in the sun. You step down into the snow. It is deep, coming up to your shins. It resists your legs. You have to lift your knees high, marching like a soldier. You break a trail towards the fold. The dog follows in your footsteps, saving his energy. The sound of your movement is different today. It is not the squelch of mud. It is the dry, squeaking sound of boots on packed snow. Squeak, crunch, squeak, crunch. You reach the wall. You look over. The sheep look up at you. 500 faces. Their breath rises in a collective cloud. They bleat at you. It is a demanding sound. They are hungry. The grass in the fold is buried or eaten. You know a spot, further down the valley, where the wind would have scoured the snow away from the heather, a patch of green and brown in the white. You must take them there. But that is work, hard work, shoveling, breaking ice. But for now, you just lean on the wall. You look at them. You look at the sun on their wall. You are the shepherd, and the day is yours. You stand before the entrance to the stone fold. The woven hazel hurdle that serves as the gate has become part of the landscape during the night. The heavy snowfall, followed by the hard frost of the morning, has cemented the bottom of the wood to the earth. A drift of snow has piled up against the bars, halfway to the top, locking it in place like a white mortar. You untie the frozen rope knot. The fibers are stiff and unyielding, biting into your cold fingers as you work them loose. You put your shoulder against the wooden frame. You push. It does not move. It feels as solid as the stone wall itself. You step back and kick the snow away from the base of the hurdle. Your boot strikes the frozen ground with a dull thud. You clear a path for the gate to swing. You try again. You grip the top rail with both hands. You heave. With a sharp cracking sound that rips through the silent air, the ice gives way. The wood tears free from the ground. You drag the hurdle back, scraping it over the uneven, frozen clods of earth and snow. The way is open. You step aside and whistle to the dog. He runs behind the fold, barking sharply to arouse the flock. Inside the stone circle, the gray mass of sheep begins to stir. They stand up, shaking the frost from their fleeces. But they do not come out. They crowd around the opening, staring blankly at the transformed world. Sheep are creatures of habit, and the white carpet before them is terrifyingly unfamiliar. The lead ewe sniffs the snow suspiciously. She paws at it, finding no grass beneath, only cold powder. She bleats, a sound of confusion that hangs in the thin air. They need a leader. They need an icebreaker. You realize that you must go first. You step into the breach. You walk past the hesitant animals, wading into the undisturbed snowfield beyond the gate. The snow comes up to your knees. It is dry and powdery on top, but denser underneath. You begin to march. You lift your knees high, driving your boots down to find purchase on the hidden ground. You are breaking a trail. You are the plow. Every step is an effort. You can feel the resistance of the snow against your shins. It drags at your trousers, soaking the wool. You look back. The lead ewe has taken the bait. Seeing a path of broken snow where the dangerous white surface has been disturbed, she steps out. She places her hooves in the deep holes your boots have made. She follows you. Behind her, the rest of the flock begins to stream out. They do not spread out as they do in summer. They form a single, long line, a black snake of animals winding through the white valley. The acoustic quality of the morning is strange. Usually, the movement of 500 sheep creates a rumble of hooves that can be heard for miles. Today, the snow swallows the sound. The hooves strike the soft powder without a click. The bodies brush against each other with a muffled rustle. The only sounds are the labored breathing of the animals and the dry, high-pitched squeak of your own boots compressing the snow. It feels like a ghost procession. You are moving through a cloud. The sun beats down on the white expanse, creating a dazzling glare that forces you to pull your hat low over your eyes. The world is reduced to two colors, the blinding white of the snow and the deep blue of the sky. You are heading for the Black Ridge, a spine of rock half a mile away. Because it is exposed to the wind, the snow there will be thin, revealing the heather and tough grass underneath. But to get there, you must cross the hollow of the valley. Here, the wind has piled the snow into deep drifts. You step forward and suddenly sink to your waist. The snow is soft and treacherous. You struggle to pull your leg free, using your crook as a lever. You drag yourself up. Behind you, the line of sheep stalls. The smaller animals are belly deep. They panic silently, their eyes wide. One ewe tries to jump through the drift and gets stuck, her legs flailing uselessly in the powder. You have to go back. You wade through the drift to the trapped animal. You grab her by the thick wool of her fleece. You heave. She is heavy, a dead weight of bone and wool. You pull her free, guiding her to the firmer ground of your path. She shakes herself and trots on. You call the dog. He is lighter than the sheep. He runs on top of the snow crust, darting back and forth, nipping at the heels of those who try to stop. He is the engine driving the train forward. Despite the freezing air, you are sweating. The physical effort of marching in deep snow is immense. Your heart is pounding in your chest, a rhythmic drumbeat in your ears. You can feel the sweat trickling down your back under the layers of wool. You stop for a moment to catch your breath. You lean on your crook. Vapor rises from your body, escaping from the neck of your sweater. You unbutton the top button of your heavy coat. The cold air touches your throat like a cool hand. You look back at the trail you have made. It is a jagged, dark scar cut into the perfection of the snow. The line of sheep stretches back to the fold, a continuous chain of life. Finally, the ground begins to rise. The snow becomes shallower. You can see the tips of the heather bushes poking through the white. You reach the crest of the Black Ridge. Here, the wind has done your work for you. It has scoured the rock clean. Large patches of brown and green vegetation are exposed. The ground is frozen hard, but it is accessible. You step aside. The flock pours past you, spreading out as they hit the clear ground. They put their heads down instantly. The sound of tearing returns. Rip, chew, rip, chew. It is the sound of relief. They have found food. They are safe. You find a dry rock on the leeward side of the ridge. You brush the snow off with your glove and sit down. Your legs are trembling slightly from the climb. You are thirsty. You have no water with you. You reach down and scoop up a handful of clean, white snow. You squeeze it into a ball in your gloved hand. You take a bite. It is shockingly cold. It melts instantly on your tongue, turning into pure, distilled water. It tastes of nothing, yet it is the freshest thing you have ever tasted. It numbs your teeth and cools your throat. From this vantage point, you can see the whole world. The valley below is a pristine bowl of white, marked only by the track you have made. The hut is a tiny toy box in the distance. The sun is high now. It offers no real warmth to the air, which remains bitter, but its light is glorious. It sparkles on the millions of ice crystals covering the moors. You watch the dog. He has found a patch of dry grass and is rolling in it, scrubbing the snow from his coat. He looks happy. You take out your pipe. You load it. You light it. The smoke drifts away on the light breeze. You sit and watch the sheep eat. There is nothing else to do. The hardest part of the day is over. You have delivered them to their table. Now, you simply have to stand guard. The silence of the high hills returns, but it is no longer the threatening silence of the storm. It is a peaceful, sunlit silence, a silence of rest. The sun has climbed to its highest point in the southern sky. In summer, this would be the hour of heat haze and buzzing flies. But here in the deep winter of the high moors, the sun offers light without warmth. It hangs like a polished brass coin against a sky of hard, porcelain blue. The light is merciless. It reflects off the millions of ice crystals that carpet the valley, creating a dazzling brilliance that forces you to keep your eyes narrowed. The world is awash in photons. There are no shadows on the ridge, only a uniform, clinical brightness that exposes every detail of the landscape. You can see the individual stems of the heather bushes a mile away. You can see the texture of the rock on the distant cracks. You shift your position on the dry rock you have chosen as your throne. The stone is cold, draining the heat from your trousers, but the woolen cloak wrapped around your legs provides a barrier. You lean back against the slope of the ridge, turning your face towards the sun. You close your eyes. Through your eyelids, the world turns a warm, glowing red. You can feel the faintest touch of solar heat on your cheeks, a ghostly kiss that reminds you that the sun is still a star, however distant. The sheep are content. They have settled into the rhythm of grazing, their heads down, their movements slow and methodical. They do not need you right now. They only need your presence. You reach into the deep pocket of your coat and pull out the length of blackthorn you began to work on last night. In the daylight, the wood looks different. You can see the intricate grain, the knots, and the imperfections that were hidden by the candlelight. The wood is dark, almost purple-black in places, with the creamy sapwood showing where you have already stripped the bark. You take out your knife. You test the blade against your thumbnail. It catches instantly. It is sharp. You begin to carve again. This is not work, it is meditation. You hold the stick firmly in your left hand, bracing it against your knee. With your right hand, you push the blade away from you, down the length of the shaft. The knife slides through the wood with a whisper. A long, thin shaving curls away from the blade, spiraling like a ribbon. It falls onto the pristine snow at your feet. The contrast is beautiful, the pale, honey-colored wood shaving against the blinding white snow. You fall into a trance, push, slide, curl, push, slide, curl. The sound is tiny and precise. It is the sound of steel overcoming celluloids. It is a dry, crisp sound that cuts through the silence of the hillside. You are smoothing the handle. The knot where a branch once grew is rough and sharp. You work around it carefully, taking small, shallow cuts. You are rounding it off, making it comfortable for a hand to grip. You are erasing the wildness of the bush and revealing the tool hidden inside. The smell of the greenwood rises up to you. It smells of sap and bitter almonds. It is a fresh, living smell that contrasts with the sterile scent of the ice. Your hands move with a practiced intelligence. You do not need to think about the angle of the blade. Your muscles remember. You watch the pile of shavings grow at your feet. A small nest of gold in the snow. A shadow flickers across your hands. It moves fast, a dark shape racing across the snow. You look up. High above, suspended in the blue, is a bird of prey, a buzzard. It is soaring on the thermal currents, its broad wings spread wide and motionless. It circles slowly, a silent sentinel patrolling its domain. You watch it. It tilts its wings slightly, adjusting its course with microscopic precision. It is hunting. It is looking for the same thing the dog looks for: movement in the heather. A vole, a rabbit, a weak lamb. For a moment, you feel a kinship with the bird. You are both watchers. You both live by your eyes. You are both solitary creatures of the high places. The bird lets out a cry, a high, lonely mewing sound that drifts down to earth. It sounds like the voice of the wind itself. Then the bird folds its wings and dives, vanishing behind the ridge in a blur of brown feathers. You look down at your feet. The dog has dug himself a shallow pit in the snow and curled up inside it. He has tucked his nose under his tail to keep it warm. He is fast asleep. Occasionally, his ear twitches, rotating like a radar dish to track a sound you cannot hear, a sheep shifting its weight, or the wind rustling the grass. Even in sleep, he is on duty. You reach down and rest your hand on his flank. The fur is warm and thick. He sighs a long, rattling exhale, but he does not wake. He accepts your touch as part of his dream. Hours pass. The carving continues. The stick is becoming smooth and polished. The pile of shavings is now a mound. You notice a change in the world. The light is shifting. The sun has begun its descent towards the western horizon. The clinical white light of noon is softening, turning to a rich, warm gold. The shadows are returning. They stretch out from every rock and every tussock of grass, long blue fingers reaching across the snow. The texture of the landscape is revealed again. The smooth white sheet becomes a relief map of ridges and hollows. The air begins to cool. The brief, illusory warmth of the midday sun evaporates. The cold begins to creep back into your extremities. You wiggle your toes in your boots. You pull your cloak tighter. In the silence of the afternoon, your mind wanders. You think about the village in the valley. You think about the smoke rising from the chimneys, the people gathering in the alehouse, the noise of the market. It feels like a different planet. Up here, time moves differently. Down there, time is measured in hours and minutes. Up here, time is measured in light and shadow, in hunger and fullness. You do not feel lonely. Loneliness implies a lack of something. You feel full. You are filled with the sky and the snow. You are part of the landscape, as rooted as the rocks. You look at the sheep. They are starting to move again, drifting slowly back towards the path you made. They know the day is ending. They know the safety of the folder waits. You make one final cut on the staff. You run your thumb over the wood. It is smooth as glass. It is finished for now. Later, you will oil it and polish it, but the shaping is done. You brush the wood chips from your lap. You close your knife with a solid click. You put the staff and the knife back into your pocket. You stand up. Your knees pop. You stretch your arms, reaching towards the sky. You take a deep breath of the freezing air. It wakes you up. You whistle to the dog. He wakes instantly, shaking the snow from his coat. He looks at you, ready. You look at the flock. You make a series of sharp, clicking sounds. Come by. Come by. The dog runs out in a wide arc, gathering the edges of the flock. The sheep lift their heads. They turn. They begin to form a line again. The sun is touching the horizon now. The snow is turning pink and violet. The day is done. You begin the long walk back. Back to the fold. Back to the hut. Back to the fire. The sun has finally slipped beneath the rim of the earth. The golden light that bathed the snow in the afternoon has vanished, replaced by a deep, bruised violet twilight. The world is losing its definition. The sharp edges of the rocks blur into the snow, and the horizon becomes a soft gradient of indigo and black. You are walking back along the trail you broke this morning. The snow in the tracks is frozen hard during the day, creating a slick, uneven path that crunches loudly under your boots. The temperature is plummeting. You can feel the frost tightening the skin on your face, a physical pressure that seeks to numb your cheeks and nose. The flock is moving well. They are eager to return to the shelter of the walls. They trot in a long, gray line, their heads bobbing in rhythm. The dog runs alongside them, a shadow moving against the blue snow. He does not need to bark. His presence is enough to keep the line straight. You reach the stone fold. The walls loom dark against the snow. Inside, the ground is churned and muddy, devoid of the white cover that blankets the rest of the world. It looks like a safe harbor. The sheep stream through the gap. They jostle each other, anxious to be inside the circle. The sound of their hooves on the mud is a wet, squelching noise that contrasts with the dry crunch of the snow. The smell of the fold rises to meet you, warm, ammoniac, and alive. You stand by the gatepost until the last animal is inside. You pick up the hazel hurdle. It is heavy with the frost that has formed on the wood. You drag it across the opening. You take the stiff, frozen rope and tie the knot. You pull it tight, your fingers aching with the cold. You lean against the wall for a moment. You listen. The sheep are settling. The breathing, the shifting, the chewing. It is the sound of a job done. They are safe for another night. You walk the final 100 yards to the shepherd's hut. It sits on its wheels, a dark silhouette against the starry sky. There is no smoke coming from the chimney. The fire has died out completely during your long absence. You climb the stairs. The wood creaks loudly in the frosty air. You open the door. The interior of the hut is freezing. It feels colder than the outside air because it is stagnant. The smell of the morning's bacon and the pipe smoke hangs frozen in the room. You step inside and close the door. You bolt it. The darkness is absolute until you strike your flint. The spark catches. You light the candle. The small flame struggles for a moment in the cold air before steadying into a yellow teardrop. You do not take off your coat yet. It is too cold. You go straight to the stove. You open the door. The ash is cold and gray. You are efficient. You place a ball of dry grass in the center. You build a small wigwam of kindling over it. You light the grass. The fire catches with a roar. The draft in the chimney is strong tonight. You feed it thicker sticks, then the peat. You close the door and open the vents wide. You can hear the fire sucking in the air. A low rushing sound fills the box. You stand right in front of the stove, keeping your gloves on, waiting for the iron to heat up. Slowly, the black metal begins to radiate warmth. It touches your knees first, then your thighs. You stay there, turning slowly like a roast on a spit, thawing out your body. Only when the room has warmed significantly do you begin to undress. You take off your heavy cloak. It is stiff with frost on the shoulders. You hang it up. You take off your hat. You pull off your boots. You sit on the chair. You are too tired to eat a full meal. You take a piece of dried meat and chew it slowly. You drink a cup of cold water. It is enough. You look at the dog. He is curled up on his rug, instantly asleep. He has run miles today in the snow. He has earned his rest. You extinguish the candle. The room plunges into darkness, lit only by the red glow from the stove vent, which pulses gently like a heartbeat. You climb into your bunk. The blankets are cold, but the mattress underneath retains a faint memory of warmth. You pull the heavy wool covers up to your chin. You curl up, shivering for a few seconds until your body heat is trapped. The weight of the blankets is a relief. It presses you down, anchoring you to the bed. The physical exhaustion of walking in deep snow hits you now. Your legs feel heavy and leaden. Your back muscles loosen. You listen to the night. The wind has picked up again, but it is not a storm. It is a steady, sweeping wind that rushes over the snow without obstruction. It whistles softly in the chimney pipe. It is a lonely sound, but it does not make you feel lonely. It makes you feel protected. You are inside. The wind is outside. The boundary is clear. You hear the timbers of the hut creaking as they cool down. You hear the dog snoring softly. These are the sounds of your life. Simple, constant, real. Your thoughts begin to slow down. The images of the day flash before your mind's eye. The blinding white snow, the black shape of the bird, the golden wood of the staff, the blue twilight. They blur together into a soft, colorful fog. You feel yourself sinking through the straw mattress, sinking through the wooden floor, sinking into the snow, sinking into the stone of the hill. You are no longer a man in a hut. You are part of the moor. You are as silent as the rocks. You are as deep as the peat. Your breathing deepens. Inhale, exhale. The cold air entering your nose is sweet and clean. The warm air leaving your lungs carries away the day. There is no tomorrow yet. There is only this moment. This warm, dark, heavy moment. The wind sings you a lullaby. The earth cradles you. You let go. You drift. You float. You sleep.